unacceptable in any society, and we certainly and fully agree with that. One of the questions that was brought up about this particular meeting here today was, how many people are involved with the militia? And I think some earlier testimony that was kind of hard to put a finger on. I can personally tell you that from my office alone, we have helped establish over 1,000 lawful militia units throughout the country in all 50 states. And I know that all of these people that I've talked to and that I talk to throughout the nation agree with the statements I'm making right now, that we must be law-abiding. The only exception to that, which I believe has already been stated, is for self-preservation and self-defense of our persons and family if an unlawful act were being perpetrated against us.
All right, Mr. Johnson.
I'd say there will only be two occasions. First one is if, once again, if you come into somebody's house, shoot.
Without a warrant and without reasonable cause.
Yeah, without a warrant, without a reasonable cause. And it would be awfully nice if they came in the house with the warrant. It would be nice if they would knock politely. But other than that, I don't see a reason for using any kind of force to justify your actions. And, of course, once again, you suspend the Constitution. Then for that reason, I don't have to recognize anybody in federal law enforcement. If we're invaded for some reason and our government's overthrown by a foreign power, we're going to have to take the law into our own hands to save it.
Mr. Olson?
I would agree completely with what J.J. Johnson has said, that there is no other reason to take law into one's own hands unless it's for the preservation of himself or the property, his family. What we have done, and this is how I deal with the law, and I recognize the law and submit to the law, we have empowered and encouraged our sheriffs. We provide the evidence. This book that I would like to present to this Senate subcommittee is about 6 pages, 6 pounds of evidence that will conclusively show this committee the corruption in government. And I would like the committee to have this book. Now you who represent this government, you who have formed this Senate body, and you who are concerned about the laws, now this is the way that I deal with it. Here's the evidence. You carry out your responsibility for the law.
Okay, may I go on and ask another question?
Yes, you may. To take whatever time you need, Senator Feinstein.
Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Olson, you're wearing a uniform, and that uniform says you are a commander. What is it that you command?
Ours is an organization of command communication. Serving in the military, we understand what is called command control communication, because there is a control that must be exercised in the organized military. We in the militia have command communication in that we convey information down to the lowest level so that reasonable, intelligent human beings can make an informed decision.
Do you command people?
No, I am a commander only in what is called a unity of command, so that a person reports to another person all the way up and down the chain. Let's call it a simple line of communication or echelon of communication. There is no command
and
control.
What do these people communicate about? Communicate
information. The information now available to the American public is extraordinary. Is extraordinary in that we are available now through alternative sources of news to convey truth to the American people. I believe that what you're seeing in America in the last 3 or 4 years is a phenomena of informed Americans now waking up. A new conscience is building in America.
I don't mean to stop you, but I've got so many questions. Yes. I want to ask you about what it is, practically what it is you do. Do the people in your organization stockpile weapons?
I wouldn't say stockpiling. No one should have more than they should need.
How many weapons does an individual need?
It depends upon the threat that they perceive.
So is it fair to say that there could be unlimited numbers of weapons?
Possibly. The old adage in the military is that accuracy is everything.
And what do you do with these weapons?
Prepare ourselves to defend ourselves, ma'am. We are not offensive. We are defensive, purely defensive.
So everybody is trained in how to use these weapons?
No, ma'am. In the community that we call the militia, there are 2 parts of the militia. That which we call the patriot body, those people that are more concerned about information seminars, videotapes, information. And then there is the militia who may be involved in the weekend maneuvers. That is what you see in the press often. What you don't see in this vast grouping of Americans concerned about the Constitution are the religious right, for example. They're very much concerned. The patriot community, the information community, they're very much concerned. But what you do see is that small portion of people called the militia who exercise on the weekends.
And under what circumstances would this command operation that you have sanction the use of these weapons?
Excellent question, ma'am. We will defer to the lawful historic authority, which is the county sheriff. He indeed is the commander of the local militia. And when a situation erupts in which we would be deputized...
Does he participate with you?
No, he cannot because, of course, of his political nature. He cannot always, but he is normally in support of, knowing the historic role of our sheriffs. In the event that the county were to be endangered, he could deputize a ready posse, and he could form the militia to defend the people. That's what the historic militia is all about.
And what would this county be afraid of?
The county could be afraid of, for example, there are 53 federal agencies right now that employ deadly force. They carry weapons and they can make arrests using deadly force.
But supposing they had warrants?
That may not necessarily be what the county would be with best interest of the people in the county. For example, our county sheriff does not know when federal officials come into the county to search, seize, or arrest until he sees it on the nightly news. We have a bill before our House, or we're trying to seek support for it. Perhaps you've heard of it, the No More Wacos bill, or the sheriff empowerment legislation, which would require federal agencies to get permission from the local county sheriffs before they could come into the county. In other words, coordinate their activities with the county sheriff. There are, of course, some exceptions to that rule, which would involve necessarily the investigation of the sheriff himself, for example.
I believe my time is up, Mr. Chairman. I'll wait for the next round.
Senator Feinstein, I don't think we're going to have another round because the vote starts in a few minutes. If you want to
Could I ask one other question?
Yes.
Do you believe there are any circumstances in which an individual has a right to blow up a building? And let's start with you, Mr. Truckman.
Absolutely not, Mrs. Feinstein. Absolutely not. We are plain and simple a neighborhood watch, watching out for problems. When we encounter what we perceive as threats to a peaceful society, we do something about it.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're plain and simple, why do I read constantly these violent quotes, this hatred for other people, this anti-Semitic, anti-black, driving people to have this intense fear and antagonism?
Would you like my black friend to answer that for you? I'm sick and tired of these questions constantly.
I asked you why.
We have gone over it and over it and over it, and if you want to blame somebody about it, take a look at the press. We're telling them one thing, they're telling you something else. I already addressed
So you're saying you don't say these things?
No, ma'am, I do not say that.
Okay.
We're all in this together.
So I wanted to know. So all those comments are wrong.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Feinstein. What we're saying is we are all in this together. America better put away its differences or we'll cease to have a country. We shouldn't be your side and my side. We should all be for the same, the betterment of our country and for our fellow countrymen. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Fletcher?
Well, it's pretty much the same answer. No, absolutely not. And I don't mean that your question's ludicrous, but that it is a little bit, and I don't mean that as an insult. I don't think anybody could perceive that point in time where that would make sense, particularly if we're talking the housing of infants and that type of thing. And the press, which Mr. Trockman refers to, shows Mr. Trockman's face and one of the other Patriot leaders' face and the blown-up babies.